me just reposition how I'm sitting. I think cross-legged is always more comfortable. Desks are not made for cross-legged.
Hare Krishna, and welcome to this week's Sunday feast here at ISKCON Chicago on behalf of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori and Srila Prabhupada. A few quick announcements before we move on to tonight's speaker. The first is tomorrow is a very big celebration. We will be honoring the appearance day of Lord Balaram, also known as Balaram Jayanti. So due to the COVID situation, this will be an online only festival. So be sure to tune in between 6:30 and 7:30 Chicago time on ISKCON Chicago. It will also be sent out as a special communication related to tomorrow's festival. There are sponsorship opportunities available as well. So for more information, check out iskonchicago.com, or if you're on our temple email list, you'll see a link to the information directly there. The other thing I wanted to highlight is September 2nd, we will be continuing an annual tradition of honoring Bhadra Purnima, which is a special opportunity to give the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam to somebody that you know in your life, or sponsoring Srimad Bhagavatam for somebody that you may not know, but others may know. So this is a special event that ISKCON Chicago does every year, where on that special day, Bhadra Purnima, one who gives the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam, according to certain process, is guaranteed to go back home, back to Godhead. So everybody wins. You know, you get a Srimad Bhagavatam, people get to get access to this transcendental knowledge, and we distribute Srila Prabhupada's books in this way. So it's a fantastic opportunity as well. So I'll turn it over now to tonight's speaker, His Grace Hari Sham Prabhu. He's going to be continuing the Brilliant as the Sun series by doing an overview slash highlight of the 13th chapter of First Canto, and he's titled his talk, Real Friends. So thank you so much, Hari Sham Prabhu, for speaking tonight. And I'll turn off my mic and turn it over to you.
All right. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to ISKCON Chicago's Sunday Feast program. I'm very happy to be here tonight to talk about this topic of friendship through the lens of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we start, was everybody who's here on tonight? Well, actually, I guess there's a lot of viewers on YouTube and Facebook, so I can't quite ask questions. Let me see on the Zoom. So, Yashodananda Prabhu, I guess if I ask questions to the audience, they'll respond by posting their comments on YouTube. Is that how it's going to work? The comment section on YouTube?
Yeah, that's one way it could work, yes.
I see. So most people are not going to join through Zoom. Is that right? Because
looks like that.
I see. Because there's a lot of interactive elements. If you're joining in through YouTube, please keep yourself ready to type comments into the comment section, because I will be asking questions. I do want to spark some discussion, so encourage all of you to please consider contributing your thoughts. And really, there's no like, oh my God, this idea is not such a great idea, I don't want to share it, what will people think? Don't worry about it. Most likely, whatever idea you have is probably a good idea, and most likely other people are also feeling it. So, feel free to share. I would encourage you. So before we begin tonight's discussion, I would like to chant the Mangala Charana. Please join me if you would like. Om Agyanante Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम राम हरे हरे. And I know we're not together, but if we could all chant the Maha Mantra together once, I would deeply appreciate it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. And maybe just one more time, I would deeply appreciate it. In case you weren't doing it the first time, please do it this time. It's for your benefit and mine. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Please repeat if you can. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, welcome to our class. Allow me a second to share my screen. Wonderful. Okay, Yashodananda Prabhu, my screen is nice and complete in front of everyone.
Yes, it looks good.
Great. So our topic today is real friends, and we're going to discuss this topic through the lens of the 13th chapter of the first canto. It's a chapter by Dhritarashtra, who is the patriarch of the Kuru dynasty. In other words, of course, we know the story, many of you are very familiar, but there are two brothers, Pandu and Dhritarashtra. The sons of Pandu were the Pandavas, virtuous. The sons of Dhritarashtra were Duryodhana and his 99 brothers, not so virtuous. And Dhritarashtra was sort of their father. Not sort of, he was their father. And in this chapter, we see a dialogue that takes place between Dhritarashtra, who is now living with the Pandavas because the Pandavas won the battle of Kurukshetra, and therefore they were the kings of the world. And because all the sons of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were killed, the Pandavas become the caretakers of Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari. And therefore Dhritarashtra is living in the house of the Pandavas. It's a very strange situation because Dhritarashtra tried to kill actually the Pandavas and used every opportunity possible to take away their rightful claim to the kingdom. So this dynamic that Dhritarashtra is living as an old man in the house of those who he tried to kill, receiving their charity, is really the thrust of this chapter. And it leads to this conversation between Vidura and Dhritarashtra, and ultimately Vidura recommending to Dhritarashtra that he must leave home. And the emotional thread that I would like to explore with all of you today is one of friendship. What is a real friend? So we'll do an overview of the chapter. Should take about 15-20 minutes. I speak a little fast, so Yashanapur, if I'm going really fast, you can slow me down, but you also are a fast speaker, so you might not be much help. If anybody else feels like, I'm speaking too quickly, post it in the YouTube comments box, because both Yashanapur and I are rapid speakers, so we don't want to speak so fast. So leave us a comment saying it's going too fast, and we will do our best to slow down. So let us begin this chapter. Our story really begins. Oh, hey, Gopal has joined us. Hare Krishna, Gopal. Our story really begins with the story of Vidura. Vidura in the Mahabharata is you could say, half brother of Dhritarashtra and Pandava. He is the half brother because he was born from Vyasadeva and a maidservant, whereas Dhritarashtra and Pandava were born from the queens, who were the widows of the father of the father of Dhritarashtra is Vyasadeva. But anyways, there's a lot of names going on here, but the story begins with the story of Vidura. We'll just keep it simple. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen here, there's an image, and here's what happens. There was once upon a time a great sage. His name was Manduka Muni. And there were some thieves who had been running around town creating havoc. and they hid in his ashram, unbeknownst to his knowing. And therefore, when the police caught those thieves, they thought Manduka Muni was also implicit in the theft. So they took him along to the jail and they had him punished. And how did they punish Manduka Muni as well as the thieves? They impaled him with a spear. Very painful punishment. They put this sage on a spear. Now, one might wonder why was this poor sage treated so horribly? It's like this, imagine that some bad people are doing some wrong things and running around. They take shelter of the temple, and the police comes looking for them, and they find them hidden inside the temple. And the police might think, oh, you temple people, you gave them shelter, so you're also guilty. That's how Manduka Muni gets arrested, and he gets punished. However, the king sees this happening and recognizes, oh, this is not a thief, this is Manduka Muni, the great sage. He has him taken off the spear. Can you imagine how painful that must be? And apologizes to him, takes care of him. But Manduka Muni is very upset. So he goes to Yamaraj. He goes to the court of Yamaraj, the god of death. And he says, how could this happen to me? How was I treated so poorly when I didn't even commit a crime? And in this image you see here, Yamaraj refers to an incident in Manduka Muni's life when he was a young boy. He found a little creature, a little animal. And sometimes children are very naughty, like I had when I was growing up. I grew up in Africa. There was a little Chinese boy in my elementary school. And one of his favorite things to do was, it would rain a lot in West Africa where I grew up. And after every rain, there were tons of frogs and little snails everywhere. And this little Chinese boy, he loved to go out, find the little snails and smash them with his foot. Horrible. If he found a little frog, he would smash it with his foot. And we were all like horrified, like, what are you doing? But he was a kid and this is how he had fun. So in the same way, Manduka Muni was a little boy. He found a little animal and he stuck a blade of grass through the backside of the animal and impaled and pierced the animal. And Yamaraj said, you did this as a child, therefore I got you punished now. You had to also be impaled. And Manduka said, what is this nonsense? I was a kid. I didn't know any better. How can you punish me for something I did as a child? You're not a good ruler. You're not a good god of death. So therefore I curse you to take birth as a Shudra. And that's how Vidura ends up in the material world. Even though he was Yamaraj, he ends up in the material world cursed by the curse of Manduka Muni. And in this human birth as Vidura, he takes advantage of this human birth to go on pilgrimage and to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the image to the right. We see Vidura here on pilgrimage, inquiring very submissively from the great sage Maitreya in the forest, asking him questions about the supreme goal of life. Because you see, as Yamaraj, he did not have so much opportunity for having Bhagavad Katha. In other words, as the god of hell, he didn't have too much opportunity for having discussions about God, right? Just like some of you have jobs, like there's Aditya Tyagi Prabhu is online and Sunita Datta Mataji is online. You all have regular jobs. You go to workplace, and your workplace, you may not have much opportunity for discussing the beauty of Krishna, right? You cannot look at your coworker and say, so do you know Krishna is blue? Why he's blue? Plays beautiful flute. Your coworker is like, come on, man, get back to work, In the same way, Yamaraj is feeling, I cannot discuss these spiritual topics in hell because everybody who comes to hell is not someone who wants to talk about spirituality. So therefore, he was hoping for a chance to have discussions about God. And so the curse was very good. And in this human form of life, he got to meet Maitreya Muni and learn from him about the science of self-realization, like that. And then he goes on this long pilgrimage, and let me change the screen here. Sorry, I lost my page. Not very good at this. Let's see. Yeah. So then he returns home. As you can see, here is a screen where Vidura is now discussing with the Pandavas. The Pandavas are very happy to see that Vidura has returned home. And they're asking him many, many questions about how his journey was, how the pilgrimage went. And in particular, Vidura had a conversation with his brother, Dhritarashtra. This is this second slide on the left-hand side. You see here, Vidura, sort of sage-like person, having a discussion with his blind brother, Dhritarashtra. And the Pandavas who were questioning Vidura and appreciating that he went on pilgrimage, there's a very beautiful verse I just wanted to read for everyone's pleasure. Yeah, it is chapter 13, text 10. It says, my Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified, because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart. You turn all places into places of pilgrimage. This is the Pandavas appreciating Vidura by saying that you went on pilgrimage to places of pilgrimage, but the reality is that you yourself are a place of pilgrimage because you carry the Supreme Lord within your heart. And therefore you have a purifying effect, right? Just like some of you are from an Indian background, Sometimes people will go to these tirthas, right? Holy places. Even Hindus do it. They go to Haridwar, they take bath in Ganga. Why? Because the idea is by going to these places, I'll purify myself of all my sinful reactions. That is, and so these holy places become filled with all the sinful reactions of all these people who have come to cleanse themselves. But a holy person, he doesn't need to go to a holy place. And in fact, by seeing him, one is purified of all of one's sinful reactions. Actually, Sri Jiva Goswami explains this, that when a saintly person sees you, by that alone, our sinful tendencies are purified. So there's a very nice, I would like to share this, just a little thing here about the power of saintly persons that I would like to share. It's in line with our theme. I want to share my screen. I want to share something else. Give me a second so you can read along with me. I'm just going to read you just a few lines from Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse. He says, a pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. This is, by the way, according to the Gita, right? This is the vision of a saintly person. He sees God in everything and everywhere. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. Prabhupada there is explaining to us and encouraging us to go to holy places, and in particular, in holy places, seek out the shelter of great souls. I would like to take a pause here for a quick discussion point. I would like to ask everybody who's online. All of us are here today. We're interested in spiritual life. And there must have been some contact with a saintly person in our life that brought us here, isn't it? We must all remember some meeting. It could be perhaps you watched a video of Srila Prabhupada, or you met your spiritual master at a retreat. I would like to take you back to that first moment when a saintly person really affected you in a way. Whoever that saintly person was, could have been a wonderful brahmachari you met on the street through book distribution, could have been your spiritual master at a retreat, could it be a video of Srila Prabhupada? Think about the first time that a saintly person really touched your heart, and please share with the group, if you can, that memory. So we'll have a quick 2-minute discussion. Anybody would like to go first? Maybe maybe some of you have very crystal clear recollection, and you just, I can't wait to share this with the group. So some of you can type it into the YouTube. Anybody who's on Zoom can just unmute themselves and speak it out. Who would like to be brave enough to share? A clear memory of meeting a saintly soul and how it touched you, and anything you remember from that meeting. Could be in person, could be digital, through YouTube, maybe you watched a video, anything.
Oh, I guess I can share.
Yes.
So I was a student at my university, and the facilitator at that program was very gentle in his approach, because I was an atheist, and a feisty atheist at that. And so he respected that. And as part of their sessions, that's where I got introduced to the Maha Mantra. The philosophy didn't resonate at all with me, but the first time I experienced him leading the group in just one round of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in unison, that was it. Like, there was very obviously power in that, and the love in which he delivered the holy name and I'll say handled me, it changed my life, because I saw there is integrity still in this world with respect to spiritual processes.
Wow, beautiful. I like that comment. You should prove that there's integrity in this world in regards to spiritual processes. Very powerful statement. I love that. You want to take a look at the YouTube to see if anybody has made a comment on our.
I don't see anything on YouTube, but generally I also call on the people that are here rather than wait for volunteers, if you want to.
Yeah. Adam, you want to share something? Your first meeting with the saintly soul. Don't be shy. And how it affected you.
I guess, can you guys hear me? Is it clear?
I hear you loud and clear, brother.
The first time I met a devotee was on YouTube. I was watching a vlog of of a famous YouTuber. He was presenting like Buddhism, Zen, stuff like that. And a devotee was featured on his vlog. And I remember I heard the devotee speak, and he was just speaking the philosophy, and he was very eloquent in the way in which he spoke. And it really attracted me, and I reached out to him because I wanted to learn more. And he was so compassionate. He was willing to give so much of his time. We read together like the Gita and the Bhagavatam on Skype, and yeah, just his compassion really blew me away.
Touched by his compassion. Vishananda was touched by the love of the devotee and his integrity, really. There's a comment here in the chat box, Sunita, that says, the first Krishna conscious person who I met was very courteous and wanted to understand my belief in God consciousness and wanted to know my spiritual practices. And then respectfully and with conviction asked me to discard all of the religions. Sounds like a preacher. But at the same time, we can see he was courteous and he took the trouble to understand what is Mataji's practice before he chose or she chose, I'm not sure, she doesn't mention the gender, to dispel her beliefs and to come under Krishna's shelter. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for extending the Mataji. If anybody else, even if it's a little bit later in the chat, if you feel like sharing on the chat box on YouTube, feel free to do so. And yeah, okay, so we'll continue on here. So let me share my screen once again. And oh, where's my presentation? Gosh, technology is so complicated, huh? Where's my presentation? Sorry about that. This is okay. Here we go. So Vidura is then staying at the house of the Pandavas, and in particular, take a look at the left-hand side of the screen, where in particular he's doing this because he wants to preach to his older brother Dhritarashtra. Now, why does he want to preach to Dhritarashtra? Srila Prabhupada explains this very, very nicely in one purport in the 14th chapter of the 14th verse of this chapter. Let me just read you exactly what Srila Prabhupada says from his own lotus hands. It's very beautiful. He says, the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother Dhritarashtra. This was Vidura's purpose, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhishthira, and still, due to his helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthira. This is the key point, that still, due to a sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed, even though these were the people he tried to kill. He was willing to accept their charity, right? What an unfortunate position to be in. Imagine how embarrassing, right? Suppose you have a huge, imagine even in normal affairs, you have a disagreement with somebody, like say you're doing some work together, some service, you have some massive disagreement. The next day you find out to do the thing you need to do today, you need to go back and ask for his help. How would you feel? Like, that's a very difficult position to be in. So then Srila Prabhupada continues. On the part of Maharaj Yudhishthira, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner. So on Yudhishthira's part, that was the proper culture. Okay, he's my uncle, it's fine. He didn't try to kill me, but still, it's my duty to maintain him. But acceptance of such magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. So Yudhishthira was right in taking care of the uncle, but Dhritarashtra should not have accepted. He accepted it because he thought there was no alternative. Vidura particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher status of spiritual cognition. It is the duty of enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidura came for that reason. Okay, so we'll just pause. Actually, I'll read this. We'll just finish it. It's a beautiful purport. But talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidura attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is the way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively, and if spoken by a realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul. And by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. So all of our spiritual life really begins by the hearing process. In Yashodanandan's case, he heard the Maha Mantra coming from the mouth of a loving devotee. In Adam's case, he heard this devotee explaining philosophy on YouTube. And Sunita Datta Mataji's case, she heard this devotee explaining, no, all these other practices you're doing, all these other religions, not so great. Just take full shelter of Krishna. So by hearing, that is the start of our spiritual life. Spiritual life begins by the hearing process. So this is what was happening. This is what Vidura was aspiring for in the case of his older brother, that if I just speak to him philosophy and the truth, it will awaken him to his good sense. So he did that. He preached to his brother. Meanwhile, the chapter describes how Parikshit Maharaj took birth from the womb of Uttara, And because of his birth, Maharaja Yudhishthira felt very much at ease that now the kingdom can be handed over to someone else eventually, and he was ruling the kingdom very peacefully. However, I will now switch back to my presentation here and continue this. So as you can see here, this is a picture of Maharaj Parikshit having taken birth from the womb of Uttara, and as a result of which Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled very peacefully the kingdom. And Vidura continued to preach to his brother Dhritarashtra. This is what we see. Now, the preaching of Vidura Dhritarashtra is at the core of this chapter. Some very, very powerful verses, a lot of deep realizations and wonderful purports by Srila Prabhupada. So we will read a few of these verses actually. I'm going to pull up the Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll just read a few of these verses together because they're so powerful. And let's see here. Share the screen. What is this? No. I guess I didn't realize how cumbersome it would be to like share the screen every couple of minutes, but anyways, what to do? So this is how Vidura begins his preaching to his brother Dhritarashtra. We'll read these verses in a second. If you want to read along on your own, if you have a digital device or something, or you want to, or you can just look at the screen, then you can read with us from here. It starts from text 9:20. Actually, we'll start from text 19. There says, this frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. This is the effect of time. My Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time that has approached us all. Carrying on. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. Your father, this is Vidura now speaking very directly to his older brother, your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and have passed away. You yourself have expanded the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity. I can't say this word for some reason, invalidity. And you're living in the home of another. Vidura is really reminding Dhritarashtra, what is the situation? Look at how you're living. Have some shame. You've been blind from your very birth, and recently you've become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus. One of the things we'll discuss at the end of this discussion today is how sometimes friends might say things to us that hurt a little bit, right? The truth always hurts, isn't it? The truth always hurts. Whenever, if we have to, it's nice to be appreciated. Like if after this class, somebody writes me an email saying, you know, Hari Sham, your class was terrible. And he gives me a long list of reasons. At first, my ego will feel a bit, oh, my God, at least you could have appreciated something before you just started attacking me, you know? But this person may probably be right because I'm not such a great speaker. And so therefore their feedback may be very relevant in my life. So if I can set aside my ego for a moment and just listen to what they're saying, I might actually improve in my service. And this is what Dhritarashtra has to do now. He has to really put aside his feelings and listen to what his brother is saying, because Vidura is really explaining to him what is the reality of the situation. He keeps going. He says, alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you're living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. He's really chastising his older brother. That look at you, you're old, your body is falling apart, you're living in a shameless position, right? You're eating the leftovers of Bhima. Bhima is the person who killed his son, by the way. So he's really reminding him of that. And still you continue to live in this palace. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport here, he says, a sadhu should never flatter kings or rich men to live comfortably at their cost. A sadhu is to speak to the householders about the naked truth of life so that they may come to their senses about the precarious life in material existence. See, it is the nature of living in the house that we become used to things, right? We become comfortable, we become used to how life goes on in the house. And there's so many practical demands when you live in the house, right? Like many of you have kids, many of you have jobs, and you understand that because of those practical necessities, sometimes it's not always possible to have very good japa or to always read the Bhagavatam every day. You know, I know myself, my life is so, even though I'm not a householder, still, like, life is so busy, you know, with so many services, projects, Krishna lunch, so many things, that there's days when I don't always have the best sadhana, right? I become so overwhelmed with just the practical affairs of life, having to take care of this, take care of that. I forget what is the goal of life. And therefore, occasionally coming in contact with saintly souls so they can just tell you very bluntly, hey, what are you doing? You're getting distracted. Don't forget, what is the goal of life? You know, it's so powerful. Srila Prabhupada continues, he says, Dhritarashtra is a typical example of an attached old man in household life. He had become a pauper in the true sense, yet he wanted to live comfortably in the house of the Pandavas, of whom Bhima especially is mentioned, because personally he killed two prominent sons of Dhritarashtra, namely Duryodhana and Dushasan, right? So to really, you could say, point out to Dhritarashtra how low his position was. Vidura was pointing out, you're living in the house of someone who killed your two dearest sons. Come on, wake up, wake up. And what does he want him to wake up to? That is what we hear in the next few verses. He says, there is no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted one of their wives and usurped their kingdom and wealth. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. This is just, it does not get more real than this, right? We use this word, does not get real. Real meaning truthful, honest. This is the direct reality of life, right? Everyone who is born must die. Everyone who dies will take birth again. This is the great cycle of life. And here Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Kripana means a miserly person, someone whose vision of the world is very narrow. Having a wrong estimation of his material body, wants to enjoy sense gratification with his utmost strength, and even in old age, he wants to become a young man by medical treatment otherwise. Right? We see this in America. There's so many methodologies that people take advantage of to try and stay young, right? The entire beauty industry, people buy creams and get plastic surgery. They want to look young. Everybody wants to look young. Nobody wants to look old. Only like young kids, when you're like 11 or 12, I don't know, I was like 12 years old and I got the first sprout of facial hair. I had a little bit of beard. I ran to my father. I said, buy me a razor. He said, why? I said, look, I'm getting facial hair. It was like one little thread, but I was so excited to get a little bit of facial. I was like, yes, I'm getting old, becoming an adult. So when you're a kid, you want to grow old. You want to look like an adult. So I was so excited. I told him, like, get me a razor. He's like, come on, it's one hair. You don't need a razor for this. But I was so excited. But as we get older, then we don't want to look old. We want to hide symptoms of being old. This is the paradox of life. When we're young, you want to look old. When you're old, you want to look young, right? Nobody wants to die. So Srila Prabhupada writes here, Dhritarashtra is addressed here as a Kripana because without any estimation of his material body, he wants to live at any cost, Vidura is trying to open his eyes so to see that he cannot live more than his term and that he must prepare for death. Since death is inevitable, why should he accept such a humiliating position for living? Right? If anyways you're going to die, why live in such a humiliating position? This is Vidura's question to his brother. Right? He says, he is called undisturbed who goes to an unknown remote place and freed from all obligations quits his material body when it has become useless. So now he comes to the point that actually what I want you to do is I want you to go to an unknown remote place and quit your material body in yoga, self-realization. Because anyways the body is going to become useless. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to the 17th chapter, very beautifully he describes something. I would like to share my screen once again. I'd like to go back to my presentation now. Prabhupada writes here, I want to read out to all of you. He says, because the living being is eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of the kingdom of God, from which no one returns to this region of repeated birth and death, and disease and old age. Therefore, any comfort of life or any material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living being. Very powerful. Srila Prabhupada writes that any situation in life which does not contribute to our eternal life, in other words, to freedom from birth, death, disease, and old age, is a kind of illusion, because whatever we're doing that thing for is temporary, right? One who understands this factually is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal known as Brahma Sukham, or absolute happiness. Now, this is a statement that I really, really love. Please hear carefully. If anything I said so far you weren't listening, it's totally fine. Is could you please just listen to this one statement? Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness, and as a hungry man cannot be made happy by all comforts of life minus foodstuff, so the man hungry for eternal absolute happiness cannot be satisfied by any amount of material happiness. So powerful. Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness, the happiness of the spiritual world, absolute happiness. And this is what Vidura is trying to encourage Dhritarashtra to pursue. That you go and look for eternal happiness, go and look for the true goal of life, right? In fact, in in the 27th verse of this chapter, this we just read up to the 26th. I'll read the 27th because I don't want to keep sharing my screen. It gets uh, uh, confusing. He says to Dhritarashtra, he's certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. So this is Vidura's final instruction to his brother, that somebody who is a first-class man, he awakens and understands either by himself or by others the falsity and misery of the material world, right? Now, I would like to have another discussion over here. And I know some of you are watching on YouTube, so you can either post your comments on YouTube, send so one of you actually just send me a direct a text message. So you can do that as well, and I can read out your comment. No worries. Um, we understand as practicing devotees that the material world is illusory, right? We understand that. We know that. Yet we can't help but be sucked in to the pressure of this world, to the reality of this world. And we sometimes allow that to eclipse or overlook our spiritual desires, our spiritual goals, right? We want to become transcendentalists who are hungry for spiritual happiness, but sometimes we get distracted and we think my hunger can be satisfied by something else, right? Just like, say, for example, Yashodanandan wakes up, or actually, for example, Gopal wakes up in the middle of the night and he's crying. And Yashodanandan thinks, oh, he needs water. So he puts water in Gopal's mouth. Gopal still keeps crying. Yashodanandan thinks, oh, Gopal needs a little sucker thing. You know, the little rubber things that babies want? He starts putting in his mouth and Gopal still's crying. Yashodanandan thinks Gopal wants to jump up and like go up and down in the air, starts throwing him in the air and bouncing with him, playing with him. Gopal is still wailing and crying, right? What Gopal actually needs is his mother's milk. Okay, and that's really what's going to satisfy the baby. But because Yashodanandan doesn't know what will actually satisfy him, he's not able to actually give him what satisfies him. In the same way, imagine our soul is like little Gopal and is crying for Krishna. But we, Yashodanandan is playing the part. I'm sorry for picking on Yashodanandan, please don't mind. Yashodanandan is playing the part of the conditioned mind who is saying, no, try this. Try this rubber sucker thing. Try orange juice. Try playing. Try drinking water. Right? And our soul keeps crying for real happiness, for Krishna consciousness. But our mind keeps diverting us. Try that. Try getting a job. Try getting this. Try getting that. By the way, don't take me wrong. I'm not saying those things are not important. You know, we need. I'm going to be a grihasta. I need to get a job. If anybody has a job, please hire me. By the way, so those things are essential, right? But are they really going to satisfy our true thirst? That's the point that Prabhupada is trying to make. So, quick discussion. I would like to ask any of you who is brave enough to share, because the theme of this chapter really is Dhritarashtra quitting home at the end of his life. Have any of you ever contemplated how you would like your old age, as you get older, to be more Krishna conscious, right? And what would you like to do in that old age to live a more Krishna conscious life? Maybe you want to go to Vrindavan. Maybe you want to preach more. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to write books to spread Krishna consciousness. Maybe you want to start a preaching center. Maybe you want to do more bhajan. Maybe you want to, whatever it is. Have any of you ever thought about getting old in Krishna consciousness when material responsibilities are less? The kids have grown up. Job is, you've made plenty of money. There's money in the bank. And now you can use your human life for more direct spiritual activities. Has anybody ever thought about this? Please share. And I'll give you 10 seconds before I start calling your names. So either be bold or be called. Actually, that rhymes. I might use that. Either be bold or be called. It's up to you. It's up to you. Let's see. Let's see if anybody is going to be bold or would they like to be called. Anyone? Okay, Sunita Mataji, thank you so much for sharing. She says, serve devotees in my old age if I'm physically capable of. Beautiful, wonderful. If you have any idea, if you would like to share a little bit more in terms of how you would like to serve them, would you like to, I don't know, cook prasadam, or would you like to maybe, I don't know, take care of widows in Radhakund, or visit older devotees and take, in what specific way would you like to serve devotees? Or if you have any ideas, if you've thought about this some more, please share with the group. There's a devotee who just messaged me saying, I've thought about it. Would you like to, can I announce your name publicly, my dear devotee, and share with the group what you've thought about? Waiting for your thoughts. In the meantime, Yashodanandan, please tell us, what are your plans for when Gopal goes off to college?
All right, well, funny thing is, when you were saying that point, Gopal was crying.
See?
I'm rocking him in his high chair, so that worked out.
Oh, you're good.
But I've always envisioned, I guess, the later stage of my life as focusing more on, especially Krishna conscious theater and writing. It's been something very dear to me. So just being able to share Krishna consciousness in that way, and then of course prasadam is a given.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I have an idea. How about a dinner show?
Yes, I love it.
A weekend dinner show where you have a drama, spirituality, while we serve them a vegan, I hope, or vegetarian prasadam meal, right? That could be really good, and you manage the theater, and I can manage the cooking part. Great,
Right, love
great
it.
retirement plan. Okay, so my friend Mukunda, all of you know Mukunda, lives in Naperville. His retirement plan is, I plan to throw all my electronics in a fire and do kirtan in Vrindavan. That's fantastic. What a sweet plan. I plan to throw all my electronics in a fire and do kirtan in Vrindavan. Thumbs up, Mukunda. Sunita Datta Mataji says, great job. Can you just keep like some, at least a phone, so you can live broadcast your kirtans for those of us who are still in the West? That would be great. Aditya Tyagi Prabhu, would you like to share? Have you ever thought about a retirement plan in Krishna consciousness? What would you like to do when you get old and a lot of your responsibilities have faded away? Do you have a plan? Do you have a sort of a vision, a strategy for your old age?
I haven't really thought a lot about that yet, but I would like to maybe read some scriptures or just pray a little more regularly.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll tell you a quick story, Aditya Tyagi Prabhu. This is just a quick story. I think you'll enjoy it because of what you just said. You'd like to read more scriptures maybe when you get older. One time I was in Vrindavan, we were walking through Braj with my spiritual master, about 15 of us, going to different villages and holy places. And we stopped at in Vrindavan. I don't know if you've ever been. Have you been to UP? Have been to Vrindavan? Have you seen the villages of UP? Very beautiful, especially the village areas, just fields, little huts and houses. We came across a beautiful clearing. There was a hut, a beautiful tree in the courtyard, and like a very nice clearing space. And when old sadhu was sitting, an old man was sitting there reading something in one of those, those wooden care like table type things. He was just reading some big book. And my Guru Maharaj, he's German, so he asked me, he said, Harisham, go and talk to this man, find out who he is, what is he doing. So I went and I spoke to him about 15 minutes. His name was Bully Baba. I'll never forget him. His name was Bully Baba. Bully Baba, they called him. And he had a big farm. He grew like jowar and wheat and different things. And he was reading Bhagavad Gita actually in Sanskrit. And he said, I'm a farmer. So once you plant, you basically have to wait. Then it's harvest season. Then you have to wait. Then you plant again. So there's a lot of downtime when you're a farmer. So I just read Bhagavad Gita all day, and I build this little space because pilgrims are going on pilgrimage through Braj Mandal. And they stop here. I give them water. I give them some rotis. So my Guru Maharaj was very charmed. He said, okay, let's sit here for some time. We called him over. And then my Guru Maharaj asked him, he said, your name is Bhuli Baba. What does it mean? And I said in Hindi, it means someone who's very forgetful. And my Guru Maharaj said, are you very forgetful? And the man just said with so much deep realization, he said in broken Hindi, he said, we have all forgotten where we come from. So aren't we all a little bit forgetful in this material world? And my spiritual master was so charmed by this. He said, this man, simple farmer, right? Living in Braj, just reading Bhagavad Gita, he has so much realization that actually we're all a little bit forgetful about who we are in this material world. And this is what he was doing in his old age. He was just reading scriptures and waiting for the wheat to grow in. So I thought I'd share that story with you because you made that nice point about getting old and reading more Shastra. Anybody on the YouTube comments, Yashodanandan, has a retirement plan they want to share with the group?
No, nothing I'm seeing on YouTube.
Okay, don't feel shy, YouTube viewers. Feel free to type it in the box. Okay, let's carry on here. We have, 15 more minutes, right?
That's right.
Okay, great. I'll come to a close because we still want to get to the discussion of what is real friendship. So, as it so happens, as a result of the preaching of Vidura, Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari, they leave in the middle of the night and they go to this ancient forest and they begin doing austerities and tapasya. And essentially what that means is bringing their attention and awareness now to focus on Krishna or God, the supreme reality. And because they've left the house without telling anybody, Yudhishthira is very, very much alarmed. He's very afraid. What happened to them? Why did they leave? And as Yudhishthira Maharaj is feeling this feeling of fear and sadness, where did my uncle go? Are they mad at us? Are they angry at us? Narada Muni appears on the stage and he begins to preach to Yudhishthira Maharaj that look, all of your lamentation for your uncle is misplaced. And he shares three very powerful ideas, which I want to share through these visual images. The first idea he shares, you look at this clock on the left-hand side, he shares that all living entities are working under the force of time, because Yudhishthira Maharaj is feeling the sense of, oh, how will they survive without me, right? What will happen to them now? He was very concerned, what will happen to them now? And Narada Muni said to him, look, everyone is working under the control of time. You are also under the control of time. So what can you really do to help somebody else, right? Time is like a force that drags everybody towards their death. So time is also dragging your uncle and your aunt towards their death. Time is dragging you towards your death. So what can you really do to help them? Again, Narada Muni was being a real friend. He was telling Yudhishthira Maharaj the reality of the situation. Why are you feeling sad? Don't think that you can save your uncle and your aunt. You're also under the control of time. The second thing Narada Muni shares with Yudhishthira Maharaj is that the Supreme Lord is in control. Time is a force, but the Supreme Lord is also under control, and he is the true well-wisher of everyone. He is the true well-wisher of everyone, and he's the controller of all situations. So learn to place faith in Krishna. He will maintain. He will take care. He's in charge. He has a plan. All right? He has a plan. This is actually a very powerful point. One of the greatest reliefs in life is to know that we're not in control. We try to live a life of always controlling everything, right? This is what happiness in the material world means. I get what I want. Happiness, it's very interesting. Happiness does not live in the object itself, right? It's not that happiness lives in my iPhone. No, happiness lives in the fact that I wanted an iPhone and I got it. When I don't want it, I get rid of it, I get the next iPhone. That is happiness, right? Otherwise, the object itself would always make us happy. This is just funny, but when I was young and I was in high school, I had friends. They loved to ask girls out on dates, but they would never get into a relationship. They just liked the joy of the chase of feeling like, oh, I got the girl to say yes, but I don't want to get into a committed relationship. In other words, he got what he wanted and now he wants to move on. It was all about the excitement of the chase and not so much about having a real relationship. Because in the material world, happiness is always in getting what you want. When you get what you want, you feel happy. It doesn't matter what the object is. The object itself doesn't make us happy. It's the feeling that I got what I wanted. But as a spiritualist, as a yogi, we understand that we are not in control. We can't always get what we want. So knowing that I get what Krishna wants me to get takes a lot of pressure off, right? Like, for example, in my case, I'm trying to go to graduate school to get my master's. I may or may not get in, but I knew from the beginning that it's in Krishna's hands. So I'm working really hard, but I prepared myself mentally that if I don't get in, it's what Krishna wants, which is a huge relief. Because if I was living under the impression that I've worked so hard that I absolutely must get in, right, and I don't get in, how disappointed would I be? How disappointed would I be if I don't get an admission into a graduate school, right? But I know Krishna has my interest at heart. So if he'll maintain me somehow or other, so if I don't get into graduate school, he'll find some other way to maintain me. I'm not worried. But I'll still do my part. I'll work as hard as I can. That was the second thing that Narada Muni shared with Yudhishthira Maharaj. And the third thing he shared is that actually we're all under the force that we're all under the force of, again, goes with the idea of time. He compares time and actually, sorry, I misspoke. The third thing he says is we're all under the force of the control of the instructions of the Vedas. And these instructions of the Vedas act like a noose around a cow that pulls the living entity from one place to another. In other words, if we've lived a materialistic life, then according to the instructions of the Vedas, we'll get a bad result in our next life. But if we are living a virtuous and spiritual life, then according to the instructions of the Vedas, we'll get a good result in our next life. So similarly, his uncle and his aunt have now gone to pursue self-realization because that is the instruction of the Shastra, and that Yudhishthira Maharaj should respect that. In this way, Narada Muni speaks the truth to Yudhishthira Maharaj. This is the reality. Don't feel sad that they left because of all these considerations and all these factors, right? And then at the end of Dhritarashtra's life, him and Gandhari are in the forest. We see here this powerful scene that Dhritarashtra, because of his mystic potency, mystic power, he's able to actually ancient yogis were able to do this. They were able to, by controlling their breath, able to generate so much heat from within that they would leave their body at their own will by spontaneously combusting. Like a great fire would emerge from their body, and finish off their human body. But before the fire would actually kill them, their soul would have already departed. This is how the ancient yogis were able to, like, merge into Brahman and leave the material body, is by will, by the power of their tapasya. They would leave the material body, and then a great fire would emerge from the body and destroy the body, because the body anyways is just a temporary vehicle. The real thing is the soul. This is what happens to Dhritarashtra. As a result of Vidura's preaching, he's able to leave his material body in the forest and go back home to this. He goes actually to the Brahman platform. He doesn't go back to the spiritual world, and that's a whole other conversation. But the point is, he got a good result. That's the main point. Even though he had a very sinful life, he took the kingdom of his nephews. He supported his son Duryodhan, who was very greedy, right? He took the side of his son, who did very impious, bad things, like disrobing Draupadi and things like that. His whole life, he was so attached. He did all wrong things. Still, because of the preaching of Vidura, he was able to leave his body as a yogi, as a self-realized soul, and merge into the Brahmajyoti. So he got a good result, even though he had not a very good life, by the mercy of a devotee. Prabhupada points this out. So now we have 9 minutes, and I would like to have a short discussion on real friendships, right? So we see in this chapter two personalities, Vidura and Narada Muni. Vidura preached to Dhritarashtra, Narada Muni preached to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And in both cases, they told each of these persons the real blunt truth, right? And as a result of which, Dhritarashtra was able to leave his body in a good way, and Yudhishthira Maharaj's worries and concerns were removed, and he was able to understand what is the reality of the situation. These are real friends. So just a short discussion on what are some of the qualities of a real friendship that you can identify based on this discussion and based on real friendships in your own life. What are some of the qualities of real friendship, right? Because we have a lot of friendships. Like, for example, if I look at your social media, Aditya Tyagi Prabhu, you might have like 400 friends on your social media, but I doubt they're all your real friends, right? If tomorrow you needed some help, I wonder how many of them would really show up, So they may not all be your real friends. So what are some of the qualities of a real friendship? Let's just get some ideas going. Mukunda, you want to type something in? You can message me directly. I'll read it out.
They're reliable.
They're reliable. Okay, that's a good quality. Anything else?
Steady. Meaning whatever baggage I might bring to the table won't change the dynamic, or at least won't result in like it's not a conditional kind of relationship.
Beautiful point, because we see in Vidura's case, he was so mistreated by his brother and his brother's son, but because his friendship was real, he came back and preached to Dhritarashtra and saved his life. So that's a very beautiful quality. That yes, whatever baggage we bring, whatever negativity we might bring, our friend thinks, you know what, I'm not going to look at your behavior. I'm going to look at who you really are and what's best for you. And that's a real friend. A real friend is somebody who doesn't look at your behavior. He looks at who you really are and how can you really help the true person, right? Because by behavior, we might sometimes not be so pakka, so good. Wonderful. Anybody else? Mukunda says they point you to the highest ideals. Yes, that is what we see in this chapter. Vidura and Narada Muni are able to point Yudhishthira Maharaj and Dhritarashtra in the direction of their highest ideals. That's true. And they're not afraid to speak it. Yes, actually, sometimes when you ask your friend, if a friend just agrees, say you did something you weren't supposed to do, right? And you go to a friend and your friend just says, no, you're okay. They might be saying that to make you feel all right, but honestly, in that situation, that is not the best thing for us, right? Like Prabhupada gives the example, a mother leaves the house and tells the son, listen, your older brother has a disease, right? Typhoid, I think is the example Prabhupada uses. Don't feed him anything sweet. And if you feed him something sweet, your older brother might die. And as soon as the mother leaves, the older brother comes to the younger brother and says, I'm really hungry. Can you feed me some gulab jamuns? And the younger brother goes and feeds him sweets, and then the brother gets even more sick and now the younger brother's in trouble. So, I don't remember if it was gulab jamuns or the disease was typhoid, but that's not relevant. The point is that the younger brother actually shouldn't have fed the older brother sweets, even though he was trying to be nice. In this situation, he wasn't his friend because he wasn't thinking about what's actually beneficial for his friend. So as Mukunda says, he reminds you of your highest ideals. Or as I'd like to put it, he reminds us of our highest potential. What are we capable of, right? Like if Aditya Tyagi Prabhu comes and says to me, Prabhu, I'm this, like I'm just picking on you, please don't mind, And I might say, Prabhu, come on, like you can wake up early, you can be more productive with your day. You have it in you. You have the potential to chant every day, read every day, and you just have to organize your day. But instead, if I say, oh, no, it's okay, life is stressful, relax, what is the need to be spiritual? I'm not being your friend. I might tell you the things you want to hear, but I'm not being your friend. And this is sometimes we as friends might be tempted to tell people what they want to hear, what they enjoy hearing. But that is not the true definition of friendship. That is not the true definition of friendship. Of course, in the name of being a real friend, don't just start telling people exactly what you think. That might also be dangerous. The relationship has to be in place. That's the most important point. If I just start telling you should improve, for instance, do this, do that, like, who are you? Stop telling me what to do. So that's another important point, that the affection and relationship has to be in place so that we can tell people what is in their best interest and they will accept it in the proper spirit. Because it's also not good to tell people something if they're not ready to accept that.
There was a comment on YouTube.
Oh, great.
By Shravan, one who understands the past and doesn't judge current based on the past and believes in you and encourages you for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. What a wonderful comment. Yes. One doesn't judge you by the past. What is that saying? Every saint has a future, every sinner. No, every sinner has a future and every saint has a past. Right? What does that mean? Every sinner has a future and every saint has a past. In other words, the sinner, right? We don't look at their past. We look at their future. That, oh, this sinner could become so great. And we look at the saint and we think, oh, look at the things he used to do. But that doesn't matter so much. He's a saint today. So we look at somebody who's a sinner and we think, what a beautiful potential he has. Look at what he can become. And we look at sinner and we think, he had these things in his past, but who cares? Look at today. He's a saint. So it's a very beautiful saying. Thank you for that comment. How do we find, this is the next question I'll ask everyone, how do you find such friends? How do you find such real friends? And I'll be honest with you, in our life, if we can have one such person in our life who has the freedom to tell us the truth, if we can cultivate one such relationship, or we give this person full license, you can tell me the truth in any situation in my life, we're very lucky. We don't need 5 or 10 people like that. It's actually quite impossible to have 5 or 10 people like that in our life. One is enough. But how do you find such a person? How do you find such a person? Anybody wants to offer an input on this? How do you find such a real friend? There's something on the chat here. Sunita Mataji said, ask Krishna for such a friend. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. I think friendships, I agree with you, Sunita Mataji. I think friendships like these are divinely arranged. I believe that people who can tell us the truth about our real potential and how we can grow are really acting as agents of Krishna in our life. And these things are very divine in nature. And it's actually really Krishna's arrangement that we find such a friend in our life. Just like, Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting, Narada Muni just shows up. Narayan, just shows up on the scene. That was Krishna's arrangement. Narada Muni showed up at the right time. Yeah.
There's 2 comments on YouTube.
Okay.
One, Nityananda Pran Prabhu says, friends are not found, they are made.
Beautiful. That brings us to actually a very interesting point in the discussion that I want to ask a question about. What was the second comment?
This one is from Itasha Krishna Prabhu, who writes, transparency from both sides, finding them in difficult times.
So to kind of combine Nityananda Prabhu's comment and Itasha's comment about transparency from both sides, real friendships are not found, that they're made. I would like to say that, yes, it's true. Sometimes these kind of people come into our life, but if we're not able to recognize and really kind of work on those relationships and grow in those relationships, it takes a lot of work actually to come to a point where a friend can actually tell us what they think. I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of devotees who have gurus, right, who are initiated. And I've heard from these people that sometimes even the guru is reluctant to give instructions to their disciple because they know this disciple's faith is weak and they won't follow. They might not fully listen. They've taken initiation, they're ready to grow in their spiritual life, but they might not be ready for the full truth, right? So how do you get to a point in life? How do we get to a point in life where our friends, our well-wishers can really tell us the truth and the full truth? I think this is really the question that Nityananda Prabhupada was helping us really consider. Real friendships are not found, they're made. So how do we make such a friendship that people can tell us the truth? I see it's 6:30 now. Can we go on for just another 2 or 3 minutes, Yashodananda Prabhu?
For sure.
Okay, great. Let's take a few quick comments. What can be done so that we can actually have such a relationship in our life and people can tell us the truth? Well-wishers, real friends can tell us what we need to hear and we'll accept it. What do we need to do to have that in our life? Adam, want to take a stab at this? Maybe Adam's being a real friend to someone right now and giving them advice about something. He has a lot of friends. So maybe he's just thinking. Anybody?
I'd say probably a healthy degree of detachment from my own conceptions, because this exchange, like even with, let's say, a true friend, doesn't mean blind acceptance of whatever he or she may say. There has to be a level of discrimination and introspection to understand, is this something that I also see? Some kind of system to work through that, because otherwise I'll just be going whichever direction the wind blows.
Yeah, good point. Some detachment from what we think and feel. That's true. If you really want to hear, if you want to receive good advice and you want to hear the truth, you may have to let go a little bit of what you really, really want, right? So that your friend or well-wisher can actually give you a new conception, something new. And then you might have to, like he was saying, it's not about just blind following, but have to also consider, what is this person saying? How can I really apply it in my life? Yeah, very, very nice point. Anybody else? I'll take maybe one more comment. Aditya Prabhu, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, also like trust, like you have to trust that they're not saying something just to, make you feel bad, but they have your good, genuine good interests at heart.
Powerful point. Actually, this is really at the heart of what Nityam Prabhu was saying, that real friendships are made. In other words, real friendships are a cultivation of trust. And sometimes that might take years and years and years of just having that trust in this person. And look, they've been there for me for so many times and so many years. Clearly, they must have my best interest at heart. That trust sometimes could take years and years to really build and develop. I had a last prompt. I wanted to ask people for some stories of deep friendships, without going into names, of experiences you've had in real friendships. But I think we've come to an end now. Is there anything on the YouTube, Vishwanathan Prabhu, that we need to look at?
There was a comment from a previous question.
Okay.
About where to go in the advanced stages of life.
Oh yeah, let's hear that. Let's.
Okay, so Nityanand Prabhu writes, I hope to live in Hampi, study the Ramayana, and visit the places of the Vanaras.
And I think then my retirement plan would be to live in Hampi, hear the Ramayana, and visit the place of the Vanaras. I would say that would be my retirement plan, if that's what you're going to do. So I think that'll create a lot of retirement plans for all of us. Some comments here from Sunita Mataji on Zoom chat. She says, recently by divine arrangement, I was brought closer to my school friend who is currently in her terminal stage of cancer. I was fortunate to be a medium to bring her to Krishna consciousness. Wonderful. Beautiful. What a powerful story. Yeah. Lucky friend, right? It's terminal stages of cancer and comes to Krishna consciousness. Okay, thank you everyone for participating. Really appreciate all the comments and questions. And in future discussions, feel free to, I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, feel free to, be more, like I guess, say, have more, you can feel free to add more comments on YouTube. And yeah, Shridhar Prabhu, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you for giving me a chance to share this topic today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Aisham Prabhu. A big appreciation for providing the very clear overview of the whole chapter. There's a lot there. And also just helping us through your discussion prompts, connect these concepts that Vidura and then later Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narada Muni are presenting. So thank you for bringing it to life for us. And thank you everyone also for your participation. And looking forward to the festival tomorrow and to seeing everybody next Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.